What's an example of an idea that's terrible on paper but worked brilliantly in reality? As someone who spent a lot of time around 2005 trying to describe it to some very skeptical people, I would definitely say Wikipedia. The interesting thing is that this only remains true through a consensus of vigilance. I can imagine a future where leadership changes, the process is subtly tainted, and eventually we get to a point where Wikipedia is indistinguishable from propaganda. It must be protected at all costs. A plane has crashed in the jungles of New Guinea. 3 survivors have found a village and managed to get communication. There's no way to get an airplane room to land and take off, and helicopters can't make it into the valley. I know. We'll airdrop medical personnel, supplies for a glider, assemble it, and slingshot it into the air. Then, we'll catch it with a tow plane. It worked. In the 1700s, this guy named Timothy Dexter had a few of these. Dead warmers are useful in cold climates, but he took a shipload of them to the Caribbean for sale. They were sold to the molasses industry as ladles and turned a handsome profit. He took a load of mittens to the same place. Some Asians bought them to sell onward to Siberia. Newcastle was a major coal mining area. He took a shipload of coal there for sale, arrived during a major miners' strike, and turned a big profit. He did the mittens thing again, this time to the South Seas, and arrived just in time to sell them to some Portuguese traders on their way to China. He wrote a book, A Pickle for the Knowing Ones, where he refused to use any punctuation. In the second edition, he responded to critics by adding 6 lines of just punctuation to pepper and salt as please. The best part is he was fed the ideas for these schemes from friends who thought he was a fool and wanted to bankrupt him. They are all legitimately bad ideas that he pulled off in their faces. Dropping a whole bunch of cats by parachute over Borneo to stop the spread of plague. Attempting to cure syphilis with malaria. Brilliantly worked as a streak though. The inventor won a Nobel Prize for it too. Gotta love early 19th century medical solutions. Sounds similar to modern chemo. Let's poison you and hope it kills cancer faster than it kills you. Let's drive a car with a GPS and a camera down every street on Earth. Putting out oil well fires by blowing them up. Have you ever heard of the pet rock phenomenon? It sounded absurd to sell rocks as pets. On paper it was a headache, but in reality, in the 70s people went crazy about it. Sometimes the craziest ideas spark the most. The guy made $1 million. You know, I had an idea like that once. It was a jump to conclusions mat. You'd have this mat, and on it would be different conclusions that you could jump to. The way they extracted those kids from the cave in Thailand. The diver and anesthesiologist first off. How fucking lucky to find somebody with that overlap in skills. Who was consultant and joined the effort, said it was a terrible idea. It was only when presented with the other options that he realized this terrible idea was truly their best option. They rescued all the kids and their coach successfully. Getting incredibly lucky with someone's skills in the right place at the right time makes me think of the Air Transat flight, where the flight ran out of fuel and completely lost power over the Atlantic. They were effectively piloting a gigantic glider with 306 people on board, and it just so happened that the captain was an experienced glider pilot. The crew glided the plane to safety in the Azores with nothing worse than a handful of fractures from the evacuation. Rumor has it that the founder of FedEx received a C in college on a paper describing his proposed business. According to the rumor, the professor thought no one would use the service when the post office already provided that service at lower cost. Cats, the Broadway musical, a nonsense fever dream about horny cat people competing to die and be reborn. Yes, that is the plot. Insofar as Cats has won, based on a book of silly short poems by T.S. Eliot that are not really related to each other except all being about cats. Just cat people introducing themselves and rubbing on each other for several hours. Then one of them ascends aka dies. To date, Cats has made over $1 billion worldwide. During the Battle of Light Gulf in Second World War, The American Navy was escorting the invasion force to the Philippines when they spotted what appeared to be the main Japanese fleet. The larger ships changed course to pursue, leaving the invasion force guarded by destroyers and escort carriers. Turns out that was a trick. The real Japanese fleet then turned up to attack. On paper, the Americans were fucked. Instead of running, the American destroyers charged the Japanese and fought so ferociously that the Japanese, thinking that the American force was larger than appeared, withdrew despite the fact that they were winning. The Sims computer game. It sounds like the stupidest idea ever. Who would want to control a Sim character doing all the mundane shit we do every day? How boring. But I played the shit out of The Sims, then the subsequent versions. In this line of thing, a fair number of Thing Simulator games are sort of that. Ugh. I just finished my exhausting job of driving a truck around town making deliveries. I can finally relax to a nice pleasant game of American Truck Simulator. A movie rental company that mails you DVDs. I thought it was the shittiest idea when it first came out, when I could drive 5 minutes to Blockbuster and get whatever I wanted then. Louis Brennan, inventor of the gyro monorail. His monorail was a single-track train which used a gyroscope-based balancing system to remain upright. The designs look insane on paper, but it was crazy innovative, safe for passengers, and was apparently even faster than the regular trains of those days. Okay, guys, here's my business plan. People will give me perfectly good stuff for free. I'll turn around and sell it for money, profit, aka Value Village, or any thrift store in general. Once upon a time, I had a headache. My then boyfriend said to take a shower by candlelight. My first thought was, showering in near darkness is a stupid idea, followed immediately by I want to try it. Damn if it didn't work. I went ahead and married him to retain access to his go ideas and his pancakes. Fiddler on the Roof. It was not an easy pitch. Who wants to go see a play about a bunch of Jewish people from ages ago who get kicked out of a Russian town? That's fun. So I'm going to make a movie about the 2008 financial crash. Okay, I'm going to explain all the jargon and why it happened. Okay, but won't people be bored? Not if I have Margot Robbie explaining, naked, in a bubble bath. Okay, you have my attention. It will be great, and it will have Christian Bale, Ryan Gosling, Steve Carell, Selena Gomez and Brad fucking Pitt. Some movie executives. Probably The Big Short is excellent. I have seen it 3 times now. I read a newspaper article about a guy who walked into his local convenience store and bought 2 lottery tickets. Most people in this scenario would play different numbers on each ticket in order to double their minuscule chances of winning. Not this guy. He played the same numbers on both tickets. It turns out he had the winning numbers for that drawing, and he owned 2 of the 3 winning tickets. That entitled him to walk away with 2/3 of the jackpot, instead of just half. Heath Ledger as the Joker in The Dark Knight. It was really something watching all the hate when he was announced as the Joker, and then everybody's reaction to seeing him in costume. I saw the movie opening night, and everybody fell dead silent every time he was on screen. The whole theater clapped in respect for him after his last scene. Escape rooms. It sounds silly writing it down on paper that you have to lock yourself in a room and solve puzzles. But it's actually super fun. Rage Against the Machine. You have a Mexican guy who raps, and another guy who bangs on his guitar with his hands and random tools, and they are going to do political songs. Some guys thought people would be interested in renting out their bedrooms to strangers. Airbnb was this born. Airbnb was basically just COUCHSU or FING.com with a payment portal I used to host strangers for free back in the day in San Francisco. Super fun. Meet new people from all over the country, show them around the city. 1 month, I had new guests every weekend. Snoop Dogg and Martha Stewart collab. Rub some puss into someone's open wound. That'll help them. Oversimplify. But that's how smallpox vaccine started, and stopped 10 to 20% of the population from dying. Thanks Edward Jenner. I was working for a company called Landmark, which had a large and successful chain of newspapers. They are like the internet, only printed on big pieces of paper one a day. When they launched the Weather Channel, I thought, who in the world would watch a channel with nothing but weather? On paper, the idea of selling empty boxes may seem absurd and pointless. However, in reality, there is a successful business where companies sell empty boxes as packaging for gifts or storage. People buy them for courier shipments, moving, and, of course, to wrap mysterious gifts. Pretty much any modern surgery. Hey, let's drug someone up to knock them out, and then slice them open and do things inside their body to make them better. If you had no idea that surgery was even possible, you'd think that anyone suggesting it was insane, or a sick psychopath who needs to be locked up for life. Bo George mentioning a global concert to Bob Geldof with all the at the time top acts performing free for charity. An impossible undertaking and without a moment to spare. But what we got was Live Aid. Honestly, Super Mario Brothers. A plumber jumps on weird mushroom people and turtles to save a princess from a bigger turtle. This should not have worked, and yet it's one of the biggest franchises of all time. When they were working on the movie Idiocracy, they asked the costume designer to find goofy yet futuristic-looking shoes to have people wear. They found a small company and decided that their shoes looked so stupid that nobody, in their right mind, would ever wear them. After some time, they were asked what would happen if the shoe brand suddenly took off, and they answered that there is no way people would seriously buy these. The brand was Crocs. Twitter. Let's restrict users to very short messages for no particular reason. Looks dumb on paper, but really took off, and then eventually devolved into an alt-right dumpster fire, but that's another story. Lotteries. You mean a group of people will come and pay you to give 50% of that money to you and 50% to a random person in that group? Hot. I feel iPads and tablets in general. Who knew there was a market in between cells and laptops? It's like a new spoon that's bigger than a small spoon and smaller than the big spoon. The guy who bought sections of the Berlin Wall. People were tearing it down and he wanted to buy some of it. The government was like, lol, sure, you pay us for something we are tearing down anyways. He has been selling pieces of the wall as souvenirs and is fairly wealthy from it. In the Civil War, the Confederate forces had a cavalry commander named Nathan Bedford Forrest. He had no formal military training, but his wealth and early success quickly saw him promoted to general. He frequently violated established military doctrine by, for example, splitting his own smaller force into two or more elements when faced with a larger force. His speed and daring often made his attacks successful simply by demoralizing his opponents. In a number of instances, he should have lost on paper, but was wildly successful. DJ Hullet, an overweight, unattractive, and illiterate man who can't play any instruments, rap, or sing, decides he wants to make it in the music industry. Good luck with that, pal. Then he goes out, convinces people to make songs for him to yell his name over, and bam, successful career in the entertainment business, where being attractive, fit, and talented all seem like prerequisites. Thanks for watching. Share your stories in the comments.